when we wanted to come to London, we similarly wanted to make a really big impact, and we wanted to bring something that it didn't have. But the problem with London is that London already has everything. I mean, it has the best museums, the best galleries, the best artists sort of seem to be coming from London, and London also has the largest arts community here in Europe. So it felt like if we were going to come to London, if the Moving Museum was going to bring something to London, it actually couldn't bring anything from the outside, but which should rather sort of focus on what it already has here. So the idea came to do an exhibition of contemporary art from London, to sort of explore all of the things that are happening here in this city. We sort of have this collaborative approach to our exhibitions, and it's part of the spirit of the Moving Museum to sort of always reach out to our networks and the people around us so that they're as much a part of this as we are. So we did a call out, and we had a whole list of titles generated by a lot of the people that we know, and open heart surgery was one of the titles, and we thought, you know, that's really the perfect way of describing an exploration of contemporary art in London.
I often find that when I'm making paintings in the studio and then I start making music in the studio, it's kind of like exercising a different part of the brain, like a different muscle, but that can they can bounce off each other, and it can help me when I'm like stuck with something that's a painting that's not working or something, and then I make some music or write something. It can kind of help me figure out problems in different ways, I guess. And also, I think because I'm not trained classically with music at all, and I've had an art school education, so when I'm making music, it feels like this kind of slightly blind exploration, which I think is really useful to tap into in the studio.
So the piece is called Occupy the Cloud, and it comes from a lot of research I've been doing into architectural visualization and kind of how technology shapes the world. And that could mean simply the programs that architects use to design buildings, or it could be more the way deeper levels of surveillance technologies and database technologies and information technology in general, and particularly network technologies, shape politics. But it was actually while I was doing a previous installation in Australia a couple of months ago, one of a series of works called Drone Shadows, which I do, which are one-to-one outlines of military drone aircraft. That piece was censored by the Australian government. And as a result, I kind of got bored with trying to be subtle. And I wanted to make a piece that was slightly more forthright in its opinions. And particularly given this site in central London, with high visibility and the use of this building itself, it seemed a good opportunity to do so.
Big shout out. I love you. You're a good friend. Big shout out.
Well, I guess a lot of the process starts with the video, so that's kind of putting together either taking or collecting video, and then a lot of the time I work mainly with the audio to start the editing process and putting it together, so it's usually like audio first. A lot of the time with the physical works, for example, whether that's like print or sculpture or installation, they kind of like spin out of the video, so it's a sort of like a physical sort of traces from the film.
We wouldn't have been able to do the show as we've done it had it not have been for this venue. I mean, there are so many kind of warehouse type spaces that one can find in large cities, but to have something like this in the heart of London with, we're in one of the most historic areas of London. You've got Fleet Street right down there, you've got Waterloo Bridge, you're overlooking the South Bank, you've got Somerset House. There's this kind of pull, and there's something really special about this area. The scale of the space enabled us to do what we wanted. This isn't just a group exhibition. We've offered each artist a kind of solo presentation, and the space has enabled us to give each artist a space that they wouldn't have ordinarily been able to have in, a gallery-sized space. I think that we were really lucky with this exhibition. The Vinyl Factory have been our exhibition partner for the whole show, and they provided the space that we're in. And naturally, we wanted to find a synergy where we could actually do what the Vinyl Factory does best, which is make these limited edition vinyls and collaborate with a group of artists that they're a bit special, and I think they're of a slightly different generation to some of the artists that the Vinyl Factory have worked with in the past. And this idea of creating something that we can kind of preserve from this exhibition in the form of a music box set. I think we noticed a lot of the artists collaborate with music in their works. They produce music in their works. They write, they speak, they articulate, they have sounds as elements to their works. So this idea of creating something that is almost a kind of archive of this exhibition through the sounds of 9 of the artists was something that we were really happy and excited to do.
The musical track that I made, it is just, it's very simple, it's closer to noise than it is to anything structured or melodic. It's a kind of ambient, abstract piece of guitar music it's just me, a metal implement. In this case it was a Stanley knife, an electric guitar and a delay pedal and an amp. So it's just noise, really.
So the record that I made is a recording of my PGP key, my public key, what I would send to other people so that I can share encrypted emails with them. But it's also, the format of doing that is then based on numbers stations, which are these somewhat cryptic Cold War radio stations. They've been broadcasting for 50, 60 years, and no one's quite sure what they are. It's always these voices broadcasting numbers on the atmosphere, which you can pick up in shortwave. They're obviously too, in some way, connected to this hidden world of cryptology and cryptography that we don't quite have access to. So it's referencing all those things. The cover of the vinyl is based on another semi-secret network. It's based on a collection of portraits I made based on Grindr users some time ago. Grindr used to be slightly more open. They increased their encryption sometime last year, which means many of these images are no longer accessible. They're hidden images that I've kind of hacked in order to make visible again, but then kind of re-encrypted, essentially as a form of politeness. I have no right to these images, and I certainly don't have any right to distribute them. But far greater forces than I are doing that on a daily basis.
A lot of it was like talking samples that were kind of repeated and looped and kind of skewed up, if you like, to create these like rhythmic kind of sounds. So a lot of that's talking and then playing around with kind of bass notes. But I played it to some friends the other day, and they said it sounded like Witch House, which I don't even know what that is. For the cover, I wanted to try and like have some kind of connection with the installation that we did here, so it being an addition. And so I've got, the cover's going to be a mirrored card. So, because I've worked a lot with mirrors in the installation, and this idea of like reflecting back upon itself and stuff, the content. So, but the print, actually, the mirror card can't actually go through the machine, so I'm having to silk screen each one by hand, which is actually quite nice, but also more work for myself.
Big shout out. I love you. You're a good friend.
We're planning Hong Kong next year in May to coincide with Art Basel Hong Kong. It's an amazing city. Simon lived there for a bit. He can maybe say a bit more about Hong Kong, and then we're planning also at the end of the year Istanbul, but that's a secret. But it's not a secret anymore.
You heard it first.
You heard it here first.